in any of the physical therapy and the patients that we're treating, there's a need for more education because we don't necessarily have the time to do a lot of that education within the clinics. And I think if there's a need, you have a specialty, if you establish yourself as the expert or at least 5 chapters ahead of everyone else, then you have a product that you can definitely launch. And I would do it. It's a cash-based revenue stream that if done properly, it's not passive fully because it takes a lot of work to do it right. But after that, then you've got the revenue stream coming in that insurances do not control what you charge and what you get paid for.
Kick it.
Welcome to Strata Stories. My name is Thomas Schreiber. I'm Director of Marketing here at Strata PT. Strata PT is a single EMR platform and a revenue cycle management service for physical, occupational, and speech therapy practices that helps you achieve a 99.99% reimbursement rate. On today's episode, Paul Singh, the CEO of Strata PT, talks with Michael Silva, a PT who opened his practice in 2003, built multiple locations, and eventually sold it in 2021. Paul and Michael walk you through a step-by-step guide on how Michael built Run Strong, Michael's running course that has helped everyone from Olympic runners to weekend warriors. They also talk about how courses can help diversify and stabilize your revenue. Finally, the guys talk about Michael's marketing and distribution strategy for his course. If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and RCM works, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo. Now, without further delay, here's today's episode.
Let's talk about the beginnings of Run Strong. Like what made you want to productize this?
Yeah, so that whole story was that's how I got into the running world. So yeah, my wife was at a running store, met a guy, worked with him, did well. His friend was a NCAA champ, did well with him. He was training to be in the Olympics for Ireland with other Irish Olympians, and it just cascaded from there. So I turned into the running guy, which was awesome. And there, fast forward till now, like I still do a ton of work with runners. And I'm a former ex-football player, meathead, gym rat. I never ran more than a mile in my life until I started working with these people. So the way it evolved, I'm working with all these runners, super busy. And what I was noticing is that as I was discharging these patients, I didn't want to discharge people. I wanted to keep them in and have some sort of other revenue stream or other product or service to offer to them. So I'm like, all right, I'm noticing that like they're off, we get them better and they're off back to running, but they all have the same discharge plan exercise wise. So I'm like, maybe if I just teach all these similar exercises that most runners, like correcting the imbalances and the needs that most runners have, maybe I can prevent injuries. So I started doing the course within my office. So I had the one office at the time, and I would stop seeing patients. I forget how many therapists I had at that point, but we would stop seeing patients. Let's just say at like 6:30 was the last patient. I would start the class at 7:15. It was an hour class, and it started getting filled up, which was great. But then I'm looking at the money I'm losing by blocking 3 treatment spots for 3-4 PTs. I'm like, oh shit, that's costing me money to do this class. So I went to a local running store that had a community room. I'm like, hey, what do you think if I did this class here? And we already collaborated, so they were a big fan of ours. We're a fan of theirs. And like, do it, like bring in customers, like you can have the room, no charge, just come in and do it. So then I took over their room and we would sell out the first class. So I had 2 classes back to back, 20 runners with each class, doing it at a running store, which is the great thing was it just reinforced our relationship with that referral source that we had. And it was great. So I had no intent of turning this digital at all. I was the furthest thing from doing anything digital. I was just a hands-on brick and mortar guy. I had no clue how to transfer that. But, as the class was going and I was getting tired teaching it, I was getting really tired, like seeing like 60, 70 patients a week, teaching 2 hours of classes twice a week, so 4 hours of these classes. I was just getting exhausted. I trained a lot of my staff and they started doing the classes. And then we started bringing them back when I expanded the offices, we started bringing them back into the offices and still did them at the running stores. So it kind of evolved, but it was a constant cash-based revenue stream. It filled the need for our clientele that we had. Runners don't strength train and do their self-care on their own unless they're hurt. Right. So now
can confirm, by the way, I am a runner and I definitely don't take care of myself.
No. And I knew that from working with so many of them. So I'm like, all right. And the cost was so low. I think it was like $20 like for an hour or so, maybe even less when it started. So it filled their need, it filled our need, it brought in a cash revenue. It also, when I started training my staff to do it, it was something different that they were doing, so it kept them motivated. And then what had happened, the reason I went digital is people started saying, this is great, but I can't come all year round. And we would do it in like 12-week blocks too, so there was a time in between. Like, you should put something online. Can you videotape the class? Can you do something so we can continue to do it? So I was like, I guess I could do that. So I did. And I took one of my really good looking young runners, not me, because no one wants to look at me do these exercises. So I got an all-American NCAA runner from Stanford to be the model, and my voice is in the background. So we turned it into a five-phase progressive class, and I teach people how to progress through the phases, and it got received really well. And then at that time too, I was doing a lot of public speaking and especially in the coaching world, trying to help coaches not destroy our runners' bodies. And then I created a runner's running coaches course, which is basically teaching the importance of foundational health for runners. And that was like the second product that I came up with.
And when you say product though, like, so for somebody going to the website right now, I mean, I can see, you've got the different packages and it's got chapters, like the exercise series has got 31, it looks like chapters and stuff like that. Was the production quality pretty high, or was it, what did it look like?
It was, I guess that's in the eye of the beholder. It was definitely higher than, I hired a professional videographer to do it. And like I said, I had what I would consider a professional model as the kid that we were filming. There was music, there's a timer. I think the production quality was pretty high. With the format, I use Thinkific as the educational platform that I use.
Yep.
So everything's like courses and chapters. So it's weird for some of the products that are on there because they're labeled as a course.
Yeah.
But in that one there, so if you were to sign in, and I'll give you a link, give it a try. I'd love to get your opinion. But you sign in, and you can't progress to the second phase until you complete the first phase at least 3 times. Most people do it for like a month before they. So it started off as a 5-week program, but then it was too fast of an advancement for most people. So it's more like a 5-month program. Many people would just use it indefinitely, and they keep cycling through the different phases.
That's cool.
I guess the production is best. It's not just me on my cell phone talking with echoey. It's me with like a voiceover. We videoed. It's professional lighting, countdown timers. There's a little blip that comes up that shows you what the next exercise is going to be, so you're prepared when you're in that first 30-second interval. I think it's well done.
Yeah. And I think, and by the way, the reason I ask is because I think, for anybody listening to this that's never done anything like this before, there's a bunch of mental hurdles you got to get over before you ever take the first leap. And for example, one of those first mental hurdles is like, what software do I use or whatever, right? And then the next mental hurdle in this case, for example, with this question is like, well, do I need a camera or whatever? And I think the thing is, like, if I had to just paraphrase, and tell me if you disagree with this, it's okay to a lot of people try to have A+ presentation and end up with like C- content. And especially when you start, I think it's better to focus on trying to get to A+ content, and C- presentation's okay. So, given like the quality of iPhones now, it's actually not crazy to think you could use that. I mean, hell, Apple has a whole ad campaign around how they're about showing off movies that were fully made on the iPhone. So like we're in 2024 now. I mean, the equipment is not the issue.
It was also pretty accepted to have even like a shaky selfie type of video.
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
need. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
So yeah, and this is one of those mental hurdles, is just understanding it's less about the equipment, and then it's more about just making sure the content. In your case, your content is effectively A+ because it started in your clinic. It's, and I'm not trying to like take away or anything from all the work you put in. I'm just trying to maybe show people that like they're already doing the work. They're probably already seeing the patients. They probably already, are getting frustrated of having to do the same thing over and over for 15 different people. And now it's just a matter of getting them over these like mental hurdles and stuff like that.
Yeah, and on that note, like, it wasn't that hard to even put it together. Like, I had the arsenal of exercises. I was teaching the class. I was giving people their own programs. It's just organizing it, and it ended up being like in those 5 phases. And yeah, the biggest hurdle was like, do I want to spend any money doing it? I chose to not just do the iPhone route. I chose to have a professional who was extremely affordable. Like, still, for the price it cost for me to get into this whole digital world, was minimal. Um, but yeah, I agree. There's a lot of beautiful looking videos that are just crap. Pardon my French. You know, I don't think mine's crap. I know it's years old now, and I'm probably gonna have to do a Run Strong 2.0 very soon to update. But yeah, it was a minimal cost to get in, and the hurdle was just like, yeah, for me,
Yeah,
I just
that's
chose to
cool.
use someone who knew what they were doing. Like, let's just go.
So then you packaged up those first few versions. You talked about the platform you put this all up on. How did you get your first subscribers then? Was it as you were discharging the patients, you were telling them about it, or some other channel? Like, how did the first people, if you remember, how did the first people sign up or find out about it and then sign up?
So I think it was like 3 avenues where I attracted the customers. So one was within my brick and mortar offices, which was great. So all my staff knew about the course. They all had free access to it and took it. There was one person at every office that was like a Run Strong certified coach that actually taught the course within the office. And then we just had little cards at the front desk when people are checking out with a QR code on there. And I think we gave like all our patients a 50% discount. So they did it. And then all the local running stores, we would go and I did what do I call it? A night of learning and doing. I would do a 3-hour paid lecture and class at running stores. And we would get like a beer sponsor and get like sneaker sponsors to throw in socks and things. We had big goodie bags, like swag bags for people. And they came in, they had a taste of the course. And then I just gave a little bit of like a, runner's health type of lecture. We had some cocktails after. It was really fun. People enjoyed it. So the running store made some money. I made some money. We gave them a huge discount on the course as well, so they would buy it through there. And then I was doing a lot of public speaking at the time, so just getting the Run Strong name out there. And again, it was priced where I could give people discounts and make it affordable for them and still make a few bucks.
Well, and again, not trying to discount it at all. I just want to kind of like maybe share maybe a summary of that to anybody listening. I think the thing is that distribution is almost always more important than the product. And I think this is yet another mental hurdle that people have to get over, because often we think about this idea of like, well, if we just build it, you spend all this effort building it and then they launch it, whether it's starting their practice or whether it's starting the next Run Strong or whatever, they launch it. And then what? They just like kind of sit there and they sort of assume that like, if you build it, they will come. And in every case, in every business study you look all through history, that's not how it really works. It actually, distribution's key, and you got to find your channels. In your case, you used your clinic as a channel, you used running stores as a channel, you used your public speaking as a channel. And so I don't think other people have to copy that exactly. The point here though is like building the program is not enough. You've got to also figure out a way to like tell people about it. In other words, lack of awareness is typically the number one reason why companies or products don't grow. It's not because, the product could have been bad, but more often than not, it's like nobody even knew about it. So it wasn't even clear whether the product was good or bad.
And to be honest with that, Paul, I probably could have done a much better job with getting my product out there. Like, I saw like some revenue coming in. I know as far as the digital world, I could 100x that if I did it properly. But I was fortunate to have in the running world and through us up here in the New England area. But when 2.0 comes out, I'm going to relaunch it and get more professional help and get the distribution out there, because I know this. With this 55 million, I think it's 55 million documented runners in this country, or something insane.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think 0.02% know about Run Strong.
Yeah, that's right. That's probably right. Yeah. I think, okay, so this is going to sound off topic, but I promise it's not. So what we're talking about here is information products. It's essentially creating scalable ways to reach an even wider audience that in this case may or may not be in driving distance of your practice. And so I'm really fascinated by information products. I have been for like 10 years or more. And so one of one of the weird things I actually do is I try to sign up for every informational products email list, and I in my Gmail I have it like filtered out into like different folders and stuff like that automatically. So a little hack for people: if you use Gmail, you can add a plus sign to your email. So like for example, mine is Paul at, so it's like you can do Paul plus Runstrong, and then that automatically shows up in your inbox, and then you can set a filter that says, okay, any email to Paul plus Runstrong goes to this folder. So anyway, here's the reason I do that. Anytime I think about creating a new information product, or or I just want to kind of like see what happens, I just kind of like go to the folder, and sometimes I'll go to there's brands or information products I've followed for 5, 6, 10 years, and it's so fascinating watching the email drip on how they market the launches, the relaunches, the discounts, the promo codes, or whatever. So that's maybe a little pro tip for anybody thinking about building their own program, is that you don't have to create this stuff from scratch. Sometimes, okay, so here's the punchy thing that might get me canceled. Look, plagiarism, we were all told that plagiarism was bad in school. And, to the kids listening, it's still bad in school.
But for the adults,
caveat is plagiarism in business is a really good starting point for whatever your efforts are going to be. Because if it's working for somebody else, you should at least consider starting there. And then you can tweak somewhere else. So yeah, like as you think about relaunching, by the way, too, it's like, you may not have to go back to the drawing board. You actually might look at, I don't know, pick your favorite New York Times best-selling business book author or something like that. And if you're on their email list, look at how they might relaunch the new editions of their books, and how does the email campaign look around that? So that's really fascinating. So I know I want to be respectful of your time here. As you think about information products, like knowing what you know today, and I forget the exact timeline of how you described this, but knowing what you know today, would you have started it earlier? Would you have just done it all the same way? Like what would you have done differently, you think, knowing what you know today in 2024?
I probably would have started it earlier for sure, because the need was there. I just didn't have my eyes open enough until it just slapped me in the face a few times. And I think it's easier to do it now. Like you said, like between technology, software, programs that are out there, I don't think it's that hard. And I think if, no matter what the population is, if your specialty is pelvic floor, right? There's a need for education for people with a pelvic floor dysfunction, right? I think there's in any of the physical therapy and the patients that we're treating, there's a need for more education because we don't necessarily have the time to do a lot of that education within the clinics. And I think if there's a need, you have a specialty, if you establish yourself as, the expert, or at least, at least 5 chapters ahead of everyone else, then you have a product that you can definitely launch, and I would do it. Like it's a cash-based revenue stream that, if done properly, it's not passive fully because it takes a lot of work to do it right. But after that, then you've got a revenue stream coming in that insurances do not control what you charge and what you get paid for. So it's really nice.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It gets therapists, like getting my therapist involved. Not only was it great for me because I didn't have to do all the hands-on teaching when we were doing that part, but just doing something different. Just doing something different is getting out of the monotony of, treating patient after patient after patient, brings a little bit of excitement to it. And then I think it's extremely important. I agree with you. Like information products, I sign up for so many information products. I'm similar to you, and I'm going to use your little hack about the filter because that's genius. Because I don't know how I organize them. Sometimes I forget things. I usually save everything as new. My inbox gets way too deep. I do the same thing, and there's a lot of really well thought out strategies on how to launch, and the drip campaigns, and I need to pay more attention to that when I relaunch.
Well, again, I want to be respectful of your time, but if it's helpful, and maybe this is a good starting point for you, or maybe somebody else listening to this, I think one of the best info marketers I've seen in a long time is a guy named Ramit Sethi, and he wrote a book called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich," which went on to be a New York Times best-selling book. Now, full disclosure, I don't have any business relationship with him, but I did work with him actually years ago. We basically shared a cubicle before he was an author and all that. But here's the more important point. One of the things I remember the most about how his informational how his information product funnel works is that if you go to his website, he effectively sells nothing. The goal of the website is to really get you to either go buy the book from Amazon or wherever you buy books. The secondary goal is to get you on his email list for a certain number of free tips. And if you look at, his calls to action, on those email signups, it's a really interesting way to look at it. But then here's a really important point, I think. Once you then subscribe to that email list, one of the things you'll find is that he never, after he gives you all this content for free, let me just cut to the chase. The first upsell you get will be something that's affordable. It'll be like some sort of, I'm making this up off the top of my head. It'll be something that's like $99 or something like that. It's affordable-ish, but the goal of that first upsell is just to get you to open your wallet. If you don't do that, you'll start to get this, more and more content, but every once in a while you get a little nudge for like that first wallet. But here's the point. To get access, you don't know this as you go through the funnel, but to get access to the higher priced programs, all the way up to like, hey, meet me in person for a one-on-one masterclass, whatever, you only get those if you've already opened your wallet once or twice, whatever. And it's not because, so Ramit is actually a master of psychology. He studied at Stanford in the persuasive technology lab, or at least spent a lot of time there anyway. Very fascinating history of this guy's, but he thinks a lot about everything in terms of psychology, because the reality is that, the person that's willing to spend $10K to show up in New York or LA to meet him in person, part of this whole funnel is to filter out the rich joker that just is going to waste his time. Like, he doesn't even want the money from that person, right? But the other part of it is like, if other people have not invested in their own sort of progression with his other programs, he doesn't really even want to offer this program to them because they're not going to get the value out of it. So anyway, I don't mean to, I have no business relationship with the guy. Frankly, I haven't talked to him in probably 5 or 6 years or something like that. But one of his information product upsell funnel, I think, is the master class. Like, by the way, product idea for somebody else. Somebody should just like build a site that just reverse engineers all these funnels and just makes it for free. Like, that would be, I bet it would crush. But anyway, I think it's really neat. And I think my hope is that other clinicians and practice owners realize, like, what you did wasn't easy, but it certainly was simple. Like, you are already doing the work, you saw a pattern, and you productized the service you were providing. And then you went one step further than most people, and you then started distributing it. You may not have called them channels, but you effectively had a multi-channel distribution plan where you were talking about it in the clinic, you were co-marketing it, you were doing revenue share programs, I think you mentioned at the stores. So I think it's really neat, and I hope, first of all, I hope you're more successful with the relaunch and that, but I also hope other people look at this, because I mean, the real benefit, if people haven't connected the dots yet, is that when you have a brick and mortar business, you are in fact limited by the number of people within a certain radius of that, right? Like, I can't walk into your practice from DC easily, but by going down the information product path, you have not only increased the possible lifetime revenue that you get per patient, which I know that's probably taboo to say, but you've also now created maybe a funnel for somebody like me who's never been to your town to learn something. And our friend Tony Maritato would say he's actually had some people that have consumed his content, and then they saw so much value that they were willing to drive 10, 12, 14 hours to Ohio to be treated by him. And that's, I think, anyway. So hopefully, if people are not sold on thinking about info products now, I don't know what else to tell them.
You did a good job selling them on it, but it's true, and like, that was one of other cash-based revenue streams that helps. With private practice, outpatient orthopedics can be tough at times, as people know, but if you just get creative, look for the opportunities and seize them, and just, if you don't have that creativity, bring someone in that does. There's plenty of opportunity for that out there.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Strata Stories. Strata PT is a single EMR platform and revenue cycle management service for physical, occupational, speech therapy practices that helps you achieve a 99.99% reimbursement rate. If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and RCM works, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo.